Good morning. My name is Ibi Funke Pigwell-Temulu. I'm a surgical registrar based in Scotland, and I'm also the convener of the Thriving in the NHS community. Today, we're going to be talking about optimizing your portfolio for specialty training. I've prepared a presentation, but at some point during this presentation, I will stop and we'll go at it workshop style. The goal of this presentation is to help people who haven't trained in the UK understand the system, understand the terminologies, so that you can have the best shot to apply for training. If we've been paying attention to the news and social media, it will be apparent that there are problems with training. There are problems with the number of training positions available, and this creates bottlenecks and competition. And there's an effort by the RDC of the BMA to limit access to training for international medical graduates, particularly those who have not yet arrived in the UK and get into training programs straight away. So the idea of this presentation is to give you all the knowledge you need so that you can make the most of the opportunity to apply for specialty training. So come with me on this journey and I'll explain some of the terminologies. So I'll start with the outline. We're going to have an introduction to the terminologies that are used in the medical workforce. We're going to talk about training and career pathways. Does it always have to be a formal training program? And we're going to talk about getting some clarity about what you want to achieve and what your goals are for your own life. Then we'll talk about the portfolio. We'll track progress. And then we'll talk about timelines and what to do with those timelines. So a brief introduction to medical workforce terminology. Clinical fellows can be junior clinical fellows or senior clinical fellows. Junior clinical fellows tend to be what was formerly described as senior house officers. So these doctors are usually on the wards. They're more experienced than foundation doctors, but they're not as experienced as registrars. And they man that gap in between, bridging the knowledge and expertise and supporting patients as they deliver care on the ward. Senior clinical fellows tend to be people who've either completed training in the UK or outside of the UK and are in that space between applying for training, applying for consultant jobs or more senior jobs. Research fellows are usually employed to carry out some research for the team. They might be on the on-call rota as well for that department. And then we have teaching fellows who again might be on the on-call rota or might deliver some ward-based care, but usually these people are employed to deliver teaching to medical students that are attached to that hospital. If you work as a specialty doctor, you can work as many grades. As a specialty doctor, it can be as an SHO, it can be as a middle grade. That terminology covers quite a wide range of roles. If you're talking about training roles, you're talking things like foundation. Foundation is the name for being a house officer. So if you're from a different country, it's a houseman or a house officer. That's what foundation is. In the UK, it's 2 years. However, there are posts called FY2 standalones, which means that if you haven't trained in the UK and have had a limited amount of experience, you can take on an FY2 role, which is a formal training role that allows you to build your portfolio and build your training to a level of equivalence with a UK trained doctor. It's important to say that foundation applications, just like specialty applications, happen in the year before. So those who are going to start foundation in 2026 would have been prepared in 2025. There are terminologies like run-through training and uncoupled training. Run-through training means that when you start, you don't stop until the end. And that's in some specialties where you go, for example, in obs and gynae, you can go from ST1 to ST8 when you finish. If you are a senior associate specialist, it means that you are able to deliver independent care in your specialty. You don't have to be supervised by a consultant. So when you do your job plan with your clinical director, you have your roles, you have your services that you deliver, and you don't have to be supervised to deliver those services. This is usually a role that is preserved for senior clinicians. And there's a group called the Senior Associate Specialist. They run sessions on X every so often, and they advocate for Senior Associate Specialists to have better opportunities. So we'll talk about this when we come to clarity again, to understand a bit more about things like this. Being a consultant or being a GP means that you have provided adequate evidence to the GMC to be put on the register. So a lot of all these things and opportunities lead to this endpoint, which is being on the specialty register, either as a hospital consultant or as a GP. And it's not necessarily hospital consultants, because there are jobs that are not hospital based, that are specialties in medicine. We'll now move on to the next topic, which is the training and career pathways. So you have options when you're thinking about this. If you want to work as a middle grade means that you're very senior and you're able to provide a lot of services without supervision. You're also not in a training program, so it means that you're able to stay in the same job for a long time. You can continue to build skills, do the things you enjoy. The advantage of being a middle grade and staying in one job is that if you're thinking about your family, having to move around and things like that, then it's an option for you. It means that you never have to work as a consultant and you are able to just do the work you enjoy. Are there limitations to this? There are pros and cons, so it's something to think about. There are lots of people who choose this pathway and are very happy with the choice they've made. To be a GP, you go through your GP training, then you come out of it. Once you've got your CCT, then you're able to apply for GP roles. This is where you talk about whether you want to be a salaried GP, a partner GP, a locum GP, a portfolio GP. There's so many options once you've completed your training. There are GPs with special interest as well. So it's not a limiting choice if you decide you want to be a GP. It's what we advocate is for exposure. You need to expose yourself to people who are doing different things so that you know how to get the most out of your career. We've talked about being a consultant and being a senior associate specialist. The senior associate specialists tend to be people who've moved from middle grade into that role as a senior associate specialist. And again, the key important thing to note here, as a middle grade, you still have to report to your consultants. As a senior associate specialist, you have your independent practice. So you are responsible for your own patients and your own activities. Now, if you want to become a consultant or be on the specialist register, there are two pathways. One is the formal training pathway, where we'll go through the national selection process, be selected, be offered a postgraduate training number, and then go through training, have your annual review of competency progression every year, and then CCT at the end of that. The other pathway is the Caesar pathway, or it's now known as the portfolio pathway, but it's popularly called the Caesar pathway because the name was only changed recently. And what that means is that you don't go through the national selection or through the annual review of competency progression. You have to build your portfolio essentially on your own to the standard that the GMC expects. And once you've done that, you'll be expected to submit evidence. Now, if you visit our website and you join the membership, you'll have access to a video called the Portfolio Pathway. And that video, you will learn how you can do this. I'll say some important things here, because if you don't get access to the video, then you might miss out on that. For the portfolio pathway, if you decide from the start that that's what you want to do, your best option is to immediately visit the GMC website and look at what the requirements are for that pathway. Break it down, because most of the time they will accept evidence that's within the past 5 years. So if the evidence is not within the past 5 years, then it means that it's not valid, which means that you lose time trying to build that up again. So it's always best to start backward, if that makes sense. So what exactly do you need? Where are you at the moment? How much more time do you need to achieve those things? And once you set it out like that, then it becomes clear. You can get the goal tracker and put your goals down, what you need to achieve every week. For example, I need to be doing 7 surgeries to meet my target of 1,000 something, or I need to be doing 5 clinics to meet my target. I need to go to 2 international conferences, things like that. You have clarity on it. With the advantage of the training pathway over the Caesar pathway is when you're in training, there are people who are looking after your portfolio, who are saying to you, you haven't done this, you're not doing enough of that, you need to do more of this. But in the portfolio pathway, there's no one looking. So you can get to the end of it and realize, oh my gosh, I had opportunities to do this, or I did this and I didn't get the evidence for it. So you don't want to be caught out in that trap. You want to be forward thinking, go ahead, look at what you want to achieve, and then come backward and work toward it. Have a clear plan, a roadmap. It doesn't mean that you'll be able to follow your plan exactly, but at least if you're derailing, then you know exactly what you need to do to get back on track. It's always best to have accountability partners. So if you find other people who are going on the portfolio pathway, you can chat to each other from time to time. Where are you with this? What are you doing with this? How far have you gone with this? And things like that. And that usually helps. Now, I've put this slide in because I think it's very important. A lot of the time, we base our decisions on what people say. I met a trainee once, or someone who had access to a training opportunity, who didn't take the job because people had said that that trust was bad for IMGs. I think that kind of thinking is not something that should be entertained. It's important for you to ask yourself, what do you want? With the climate around training applications for international medical graduates, if you get a training opportunity, you should take it, because things can change very quickly such that that opportunity is no longer available. So be clear what you want. If you don't want to go into training, then don't spend your time applying for training jobs, because what that means is that you're spending time that you could have been using to build your portfolio towards something else, preparing for applications. And we'll talk about the preparations. So what do you want for yourself? Is what is the most important thing to you at this stage in your life? Stability. I want to be able to know when I'm finishing from work. I want to know what I'll be doing in a year from now. I want to have clarity. I want to know I want to be comfortable with the people I work with. That's probably not. So if national training application is probably not for you, because you don't know where you'll get thrown. You don't know who your colleagues will be in 6 months' time. There's a lot you don't know. That said, I have heard that there are trusts who now offer training designed roles within that trust, where people can stay without having gone through national selection, and they will be treated the same way as trainees, going through the ARCP, going through everything, so that ultimately they'll be ready to present their portfolios. So if you're the sort of person who doesn't want to move around, it's worth exploring options like this and seeing if you can key into them. Usually these kinds of opportunities become apparent when you work in a trust and people have good relationships with you. Then they tell you about opportunities like this. So it's always good to make good relationships at work, keep them going, stay in touch with people who've been good to you when you move to other places, keep them informed of what you're doing in your life and your goals, so that whenever opportunities come up, you can think about them. Now, I've put this one in the middle. Can you change your mind? So assuming that you've decided not to go into training and to do a middle grade post and you one day decide that, no, actually, I want to go into training, can you change your mind? The answer is yes, but it's not a straightforward yes. You have to be clear. So a lot of the applications currently or in the past penalized people. The longer it had been since you left medical school, the more likely was that your scores would not be taken into consideration. So your scores would be reduced so that you are not outshining the people who have just finished medical school. So it's sort of punitive if you spend more time in the specialty. So that's something to think about. If you choose a specialty and you change your mind, so say, for example, I chose ONG, but actually I want to do general surgery or vice versa, or even general surgery to vascular surgery. If you want to change your mind in that way, you can. And all you have to do is apply for the new specialty. That said, you need to discuss this with your trainers, because that spot that you'll be leaving is a spot that someone else could have had. So a lot of people frown at it. They don't really like it. That it's not their life, it's your life. But just be aware that you need to discuss this and you need to be careful how you manage relationships about this if that's what you decide. So the things I've talked about in terms of what you think about when you're going to change your mind, those are the things I wanted us to talk about bearing in mind when you're wanting to change your mind. So the Oriel website is the national platform for applying for postgraduate training. If you're getting a national training number, this is where you'll get it. Any other websites I'm not aware of. So it's useful to have an account here. Health Education England was responsible for publishing all the information relevant to the training. Application is in rounds. Some of the specialties have qualifying exams. I've made a list of those. You will need mentors. So this is the time to make sure your mentors are aware that you're applying for training. If if the specialty you've chosen is the sort where you need to do applications, then they need to review your applications. They need to support you with letters. They need to help you practice for your interviews, even as you practice with your peers. So you really need to lean into your network of mentors. Make sure you get all your documentation ready. Don't even play about this. And don't wait until it's time for your application. So if you are not planning to apply in this year's round of applications, please, 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 and please download the application form, get on Oriel, see all the requirements that have been made for this year, and get your portfolio right for next year. So get everything ready. So for example, in surgery, there's expectation for you to demonstrate leadership. I'm from Nigeria. I had done some leadership roles in Nigeria. So I got in touch with my Association of Resident Doctors to provide evidence for me. When I was doing my master's, I did some leadership roles. I got in touch, even though it was it was many, many years later, I got in touch with my school. I said, look, I'm doing this. I need a letter to support and say I did that. They got me the letter, and I did all these things in advance of my application so that when it was time to apply, I just focused on the application itself. Look at the previous person specifications. What tends to happen is the expectations change every year. So you don't want to be caught out. Look at what they've asked for before. Make sure you have all of that. And then whatever they need this time, you're just adding on. I think the next slide, we'll come back to this when we go to the workshop. So I've just done a screen grab here. And this is, again, something we're going to look at just now, just to have a sense of what you're dealing with and what to expect, okay? And then, no, I wanted to show this slide. Yes, so specialties that use MSRE, which is the qualifying exam, multi-specialty recruitment assessment. These are all the specialties, and you can see that they're quite a lot, yeah? They're quite a lot. This BDT, broad-based training, I think it's a relatively new specialty, and it's only in Scotland at present. But you can see how many they are. So I think I can exit this, and I will just take you to the browser that I was on, because I've prepared that for our discussion this morning. So this is a website that is showing you what to expect. This is specialty recruitment. These are round 2 vacancies. So let's go back because you'll be wondering what are rounds, okay? So the rounds, it means that there are different applications that are happening at different times. So if you see, this is round 1 vacancies, and the applications for that open 23rd October and closed 20th November. And you can see the specialties there. And you can see, if you remember from what we've just looked at, some of these specialties require MSRA exams. So that brings us back to the timeline. If you were preparing for this year, then you should have known that applications would open in October, and you know how to time your MSRA exams so that you would be eligible to apply. Okay, remember what we said about Oriel. Applications will be via the Oriel recruitment system. Okay, so these are round 1 vacancies. We go to round 2, and you see the closing date is November. I hope someone spotted that. So we come here to round 2. What's happening in round 2? And we can see that this is relatively more senior roles. Okay, you can see that it's ST34, 34, 34. So these are the roles that are available. At this stage, I'm sure someone is already thinking and wondering, okay, what do the competition ratios mean? Why hasn't she talked about competition ratios? I don't talk about competition ratios a lot in the way a lot of people talk about it. So the thing about the competition ratios is that it's very raw data. It doesn't carry information. So what the competition ratio says is that 500 people applied for 20 posts, right? But what we need to know and what is relevant to you is how many highly qualified people applied for those roles. So you'll meet people who apply for 5 different specialties, and they're doing that because they just want at least one of them to work. People have ended up in specialties that they don't really like because they just thought they'd throw that in while they were applying. So the competition ratios are important, I suppose, for the government to understand who's applying, or how the application behavior is changing. But for you as an IMG, I would not focus on the ratios. And there are 2 ways to look at it. One way to look at it is, oh, there are lots of people applying to this specialty. It's very competitive, so I will not apply. That's not the way I look at it. The way I look at it is, if there are lots of people applying and not many people are getting it, it means that my application needs to be on point. I need to be one of those people getting the job. So I'm going to do everything I can to make sure that my application stands out. And that's why you prepare your portfolio. You don't just wait until it's time to apply. If you know what you want, then you prepare for it. A lot of the specialties that are competitive, the people that get in, when you meet them and you speak with them, you see how much work that they've put in. If you're ready to put in the work, almost certainly you will be selected. And this has always been the case. Even when the resident labor market test was still in place, international medical graduates were getting into training jobs because they were putting in the work and they were getting their training numbers. Okay, so that's the way to think about it. If you want it, you work hard for it. If you work hard for it, you will get it. Okay. So that's us on the rounds. So we'll then go, having looked at the rounds, let's go and look at the timetable. So you can see this, the different specialty timelines. And remember that these applications are opening now are for people starting in 2026. And some of the jobs even go to 2027. So this is useful for people to know so that you know what you're working toward, right? When your interview is going to be. If you're planning holidays, you can plan so that you're not in a part of the world where you're not sure what your access to the internet will be and things like that. So you plan. This timetable is available to download. I got it off. I just said medical recruitment timeline 2026, and this document was there for me to download. So if you want to have a closer look, or you want to, narrow it down to your specific one, you can download it yourself. So like I was saying, so around 3 vacancies will be published in July 2026 for a February 2027 start. Okay. MSRA sitting to be confirmed. So this is even helpful because it tells you when your MSRA, you should be thinking about it. Okay. So that's very, it gives you clarity. What am I working towards? What are my goals? Okay. And then we come back here and we'll just pick some specialties at random so that you understand what I mean when I say person specification. Okay. So there's no way for them to check all of this apart from through your application. Nobody is going to call you and see if you have Microsoft Office and email skills and ability. It'll just be through your application that'll be assessed. Okay. Your personal skills, commitments, these are things that will be seen through your CV and what you put on your CV. Knowledge and experience of research, and again, experience of quality audit and quality improvement, experience of teaching. And these are the opportunities. We know how important these things are, and these are the opportunities we create at Thriving in the NHS. So you can join us every Thursday, first and third Thursday of the month for teaching sessions, and those sessions are delivered by international medical graduates, and we're able to offer them certificates to say that they have delivered teaching along with feedback. So these are the opportunities we're creating. Experience of audit and quality improvement. We have a National Learning Day where we'll be teaching more about quality improvement, and people have the opportunity to submit their quality improvement projects, win prizes. All those things can go into your portfolio and you can demonstrate that. So all of what we do is to create opportunities so that people are not stuck. If you don't get the opportunity at work, it doesn't matter, because you can get the opportunity with us and you can still have your portfolio ready. So I'd encourage everyone to explore the website and look for how you can take advantage of these opportunities. So let's go to the person specification for this acute coronary care acute care common STEM specialty. I said coronary care. So this is person specification. So the person specification, the way to interpret it is like when you apply, so say you're not in medicine and you apply for a role, they'll write the job description. So if you even apply on NHS jobs, you'll see the job description. Then you see the person specification. This person specification is the same for training. So if you have a look at these things, they don't want people who've completed training programs in the specialty or who are eligible for CSER to be applying for training jobs, because you're taking opportunities for people who need that training. Okay. Eligibility to work in the UK. So make sure you've sorted out your GMC licensing. You can see that nobody has mentioned anything about visas or anything. So it means that that's not a limitation. If you're good enough to get the job, then that will be sorted. Okay. Career history. You must be able to provide complete details of your employment history, including any gaps. Please ensure that you fill this accurately. We hear stories about, oh, I forgot and I said this, and they've found out that it was different from what I said to the GMC. Be as honest as you can. Don't make up stuff. Just do what you need to do, okay? Disclosure, you'll fill that. So all of these things that they've put here, they're part of the form on Oriel. So I would strongly recommend, whether you're applying or not, to go to a previous year's application. Just start the application. You don't have to complete it. And then save it and then print out the form. You can print as PDF if you don't have a printer at home. What that does for you is it shows you all the sections of the applications, because these applications can be quite time consuming. So you need to know what you're working towards and all the things that you'll need. So I'll recommend that in preparing for your training. Okay, so you can see that this is the kind of administrative thing that I'm talking about. If you're currently in specialty training and applying to continue training in the same specialty, in another region, you must obtain a support for application to another region form signed by your TPD. So this is the kind of admin you should get sorted well in advance. It shouldn't be when the application opens in October and closes in November that you're running around trying to get this. You should have this in advance. And same for if you have previously resigned, same thing for foundation. So all these things, competencies, certificate of readiness to enter specialty training, all these forms are available on Oriel, but you can see they've also made it available here. So if you need all these things, get them ready now before application opens. Now we're already behind time because some of the applications are opening next week. So if you don't have this, you should urgently sort these things out. Your knowledge, workplace skills, these are all things that you can demonstrate through your application, okay? Again, quality improvement teaching, it keeps coming back, the same things. Okay, and they all want experience in their specialty. You can see evidence of engagement with exams in this particular one. So I think GP is quite a popular, what do you call it, specialty that people choose to apply. So let's see what GP says here, and we can look at that. Person specifications 2026, go back. So that one, we just picked acute common stem. You can see all the specialties are here. This is medical.hee.nhs.uk/medical training. But if you just do medical HEE, medical training on Google, something will pop up, okay? This page can be a bit tricky to find, I admit. So trying to find the 2026 was a bit tricky, but we got there in the end, sorry. I always default to general surgery. So general practice, ST1. What do they want from you? What is your person specification? Okay, so download that. So you must have your medical degree, must not hold a CCT or be eligible for Caesar, all the same stuff. If you've been removed, certificate of readiness to enter specialty training. It should say MSRA somewhere. I can't see the MSRA yet. I may have skipped it because I'm speed reading. So let's look for MSRA because I'm sure that's the requirements. No, it doesn't say that. That's very interesting. So maybe that's not in the person specification. Maybe we'll find that in the eligibility criteria. Unless if they've taken it away, but I very much doubt that. Well, we'll see. So let's see what's here. Eligibility criteria, qualifications. Let's look at that. Okay. Registration and right to work. Okay. Capability and competencies. So this is very similar to what is on that form. You must be eligible for UK performers list. I don't know if that's a new thing. I've not actually heard of that, I'll be honest. So let's look up what that is. Okay, I'm sure GP people know about this. Okay, that's fine. So it's not anything particularly tedious. Essential selection criteria. So this is the same things that are on the sheet we were just looking at. So it actually does not mention, it doesn't actually mention the MSRA, but we all know that the MSRA is part of this application. So I find that very strange that it doesn't mention the MSRA, but let's wait and see. Maybe when you've completed the application, that's when you get invited to GP. As you can tell, my knowledge of GP land is very limited. So let's go back to the application or the presentation. That's what I meant by workshop style. So we could just go through it together. So we've talked about where to start. I've shared the link. This is how you find out what's application, what is your timeline, when is it opening, when is it closing, and things like that. Because you'd be surprised, a lot of people don't know this information. I didn't as well. I was so focused on passing my MRCS exam, which was what I needed. So I wasn't paying attention to all these dates and timelines until it became time to actually apply. So having talked at you for 30 minutes, it is my strong conviction that after this meeting, you'll be able to succeed in your application. And once you get past the initial stages, so the long listing, where's that initial confirmation, long listing, short listing, invitations, interviews held, rankings released, program preferences. Once you get to program preferences, this is where people struggle. And this is where people make decisions that are best guided by mentors. I'll put it like that. So things you think about, things that people think about, I have noticed a lot of short-term thinking. Yeah, okay, thanks. That makes sense. That actually makes sense. Thanks for sharing that. MSRA is a relatively, I won't say it's new, but it has surely evolved over the past few years to include more specialties. So my knowledge of it is very limited. So thank you. I just know that it's a requirement, but thank you for sharing. That's very helpful. So once you've got to the point where you are preferencing, people make decisions based on short-term goals. Particularly, I've found that it's particularly difficult for young married people. And things that influence them are things like having to live apart, coping with young families if they are working far away from home or not knowing where they're going to live. One of the things I always tell people is that training is finite. No matter what, even if you choose a specialty that takes 12 years, which currently doesn't exist, but let's assume you choose something that takes 12 years, those 12 years will end, right? So your decision making should be based on the outlook that this training is a finite thing. So if I have to inconvenience myself for a few years so that after those few years, I can get what I want out of life, it might be a fair trade-off. There are people who look at life differently, who say, you live a day at a time, and they don't want to make those decisions for the long-term benefits. They want the benefit now. And that's fine as well. We come back to knowing yourself. Know yourself and what's important to you. Please don't turn down training opportunities because of distance from your family, or like they're work around these things. So you can apply once you've got your number, you can apply to be sent back to where your family is. Your family might end up coming out to meet you where you are. Like that, it's dynamic. So don't narrow yourself down. Don't say that you're not going to go to a place because you don't know anyone there. You will meet new people, you will make new friends. So I suppose what I want you to take away from this part of the conversation is this is a big picture, okay? If you've worked hard enough to get to this point, don't lose it over something that is arbitrary and can be fixed or can move, okay? Speak to mentors, speak with more experienced people who can guide you and who can show you a perspective that you're clearly not applying. Make sure that you don't lose opportunities for things that can be changed, especially for GP training that's short. In no time, you'll be back with your family. Or your family can make the sacrifice just for those 3 years. And if it's longer, say a surgery or O&G, there are ways. So speak with people who've navigated the system for longer, who can guide you and help you make better choices, especially if you already know the specialty you want to do and people know the better places where you can train in those specialties. Make sure you're not making this decision alone. Get information from people who have more experience. I've talked about this already. Switching specialties, you can, though you have to apply again and you have to speak with your TPD. And we've talked about transferring deaneries just now. It's called interdeanery transfer. You have to have the specific circumstances under which it's considered. It's not automatic. There has to be space where you're going. So the training program directors need to communicate. You need to speak to them early. There are usually windows where these applications are made. So be aware of the window so that you don't miss the opportunity, because it's like twice a year or something. So with all of this, I think the most important thing I want to leave you with is you have to have your goals and you have to be goal-oriented. know exactly what you want to achieve, know exactly what it's going to take you to get there. Put in the work. If you are good and you stand out, no one will hold the job back from you. That remains one of the benefits of working in the UK. It's still a merit-based society.